Hi, my name is Iris. Currently, I am part of the in-house staff at the Omni Champions Gate outside Orlando, Florida. I've done a bit of everything from theater to radio, television, live events. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in theater, and my first job was in radio, so you never know where you're going to end up in this. I'm part of this community because I believe in education, and during this time, I believe everyone can improve their knowledge to get more gigs and do more things and just be more flexible in the new whatever it is we're going into. But I appreciate you're here. I hope you learned something and have fun watch the show.
And welcome back to AV Tech Talks. Tonight we got ZoomOSC 4. We're going to look at some features. We're going to look at some new things that are coming out. But first, I want to have Omar. Do you mind kicking it to our house rules for today?
Yes, of course. So tonight I'm going to go over some of the new house rules we created over the last week. Ed, me, Diza, Chris, I've been working on a new one for you guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. It'll be our new one going forward. I hope you enjoyed the stream starting soon one. It was very fun to create. And I got approval from not only the bosses, but the little one as well, and the 6-year-old who definitely liked slide 1, by the way. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the house rules, AV Tech Talks house rules. Join us on AV Live Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So join us on Zoom, watch on Facebook or YouTube from the AV Educate page, or register as an attendee for the webinar. That link will be in the comments for you momentarily if you don't have it already. I highly recommend you register and come see on the behind the scenes on our pre-side and post-side and how we do things. Next up, this is a live Q&A. Our guests will lead us through a guided demo and conversations about tonight's topic. We'll talk to your questions and comments throughout the show. Don't wait until the end. Get your questions and comments in early. It'll shape the conversation. Highly recommend it. This is a live Q&A session the entire time through it. If you guys are new to the program, this is how we do it. We encourage you to ask questions to the speakers to get more out of this, or one of those things, right? The more you put into it, the more you get out of it. We don't know it all. We are human and we don't claim to know everything. We maybe demonstrate or discuss one way to do something, but that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. If you find another way that is either easier or yields better results, please share this with the community so we can all learn together. And you can go ahead and put that in the comments if you disagree or agree with something, and we'll go ahead and share that, and we'll collaborate about it live with you guys and figure out a solution if it's wrong, or if you guys have had a different scenario in your scenarios. So again, shameless plug, follow AV Educate. We're on Facebook, Instagram. We have a library of content on YouTube that we're building up right now. Join us on Zoom again for the AV Tech Talks and become a member of our community on Discord, where the conversations, learning, and sharing continue. Email us directly at info@aveducate.com to be part of the action, or to suggest the next great idea, or to be a participant yourself and be a speaker for the next AV Tech Talks. Finally, we are where you are. So scan the QR code below with your phones. If you're watching from your at-home location right now, go ahead and take your camera out, go over that little code, and it'll take you to the Facebook page, and you can register there to follow us, like us, share, and give us a thumbs up. Let us know you're here with us. And finally, thanks for being part of the AV Educate community. We're happy to have you, and we'd love to continue doing this and meeting all you guys. And I think this is the last thing, our slogan from the beginning, right? You're only as good as your crew. So again, thank you for being here. Thank you for being with us. And I will shoot this back to Ed.
Great. Thanks, Omar. I want to, I think I want to today just change the order how we do this one part. And I want to make sure we thank the DVE store for their continued support. If you're joining us on the webinar or on Facebook or YouTube, you're seeing everything in beautiful 1080p, and that is thanks to DVE Store. Go visit them at dvestore.com. So wanted to get that out of the way up front. so I didn't forget, because we have so much going on tonight that I'm afraid that I'm going to forget what is going on. I'm just so excited. Tonight we have Andy Carluccio and Ashley Green from Liminal, who are going to show us some stuff about ZoomOSC 4. You guys might remember that they joined us last month to talk about ZoomOSC 3.2.1, I think it was, and they released the beta for 4.0 that night. And now 4.0 is a thing. It exists. It's a great thing. I've been playing with it. They just finished up some training over at Office Hours, and really excited to hear about some of these features and then hear about what else is coming up. So, Andy, I don't want to waste too much time. I want to get right into it. So let us know what can we expect to see.
Absolutely, and thank you for having us back. It's a real pleasure to be here. As I said, I'm joined by Ashley Green, who is our integrations developer here at Liminal, and I wanted to make sure that we had a chance to interface all together and talk about what we've been working on. So as Ed mentioned, last time we were on, we were about to launch version 4. And we have since done so and have really tried to get that into the hands of creators in the AV community. And tonight I wanted to focus on some of the integrations that we've created on version 4, and then end with a couple of things that we have coming down the pipeline. So that's why I'm so excited to have Ashley joining me today. We're going to talk about the Bitfocus Companion quite a bit. This is something that, for ZoomOSC as being a control interface, there's all sorts of things that you can use to get into it, and we find that Companion is one of the most popular. So we created a first-party integration with the Bitfocus Companion this past month, an instance inside of it, so that now users who are trying to get more control of Zoom have a really easy way to pick it up and go and get quite a lot of power. This is the names on the keys thing that we got for as long basically since the products existed. We've had people asking us to have some way of getting usernames onto keys on the Companion on the StreamDeck, and this is how we do it. So, Ashley, do you want to take over and walk us through a little bit about how that module works, what the instance is, and how the variables are constructed, and all of that, and take us through some of that?
Yeah, I'll just share my screen on here.
You got the double zoom?
Yeah.
There we go.
Right. Yeah. So this is the config, the instance config page that you'll see when you first load the module into Companion. As you can see, you've got a good status here. That means that the Companion can see ZoomOSC and it's received a ping message back from Companion, and that's good. So in the config, you get a list of all the variables that are available to ZoomOSC, and you can see it's quite a long list. As soon as you have more than about 3 or 4 people in there, it's not really the best way to see that. But if you click on the help icon, I think Andy, we've had to tell quite a few people like to look through this because how the variables are generated dynamically. It's easier if you look through and kind of find out how they are generated. So we use this this way of assigning the variables. So you have the instance, which is ZoomOSC in this case, and then we have the variable name, which could be username, could be anything's available in here in this list of variables. And then it's defined by the user source, which can be any method of targeting, either username, using a target ID, which is used to be participant ID, I think, in ZoomOSC 3. So that's a pre-existing list of usernames that you set in a text file. Then we've got a problem.
So yes, like Ash is saying, the Companion integration is set up the same way that those of you who've been doing the version 4 training with us are familiar with the multiple target types, where you've got, we can reference people by their index in the gallery view, we can reference people by their target IDs, We can pull information like their username or their position on screen. So the instance variables are fed by the same list output that you have in any integration. So it works just the same way. And just to be clear about what an instance is, for those of you who might not be familiar super with Companion, instances are that list of different devices made by manufacturers that appear on the integrations page. So what's the change is, we've been on Companion before. We had a Companion config file. And that was basically this: you hit a button, it sends a command, and it moves sort of in the forward direction. What an instance allows us to do is work in the backwards direction and be able to take information about the Zoom meeting and bring it in to those dynamic variables. What we've done is we created the bridge between Open Sound Control and Companion variables that allow us to populate those keys and do things with the states and things like that. Just to be clear about how this is different from the other integrations that we've created in the past.
Yeah. Would it be good to show the way that we kind of add this user feedback in first?
Yeah, why don't we build some buttons, maybe gallery position buttons.
Yeah.
And then maybe we can show some instance states like the coloring the key if their video's on or off or things like that. And then I'd love to pull in Benjamin as well to talk about what he's been working on his end. But let's start there.
So here we have this is all pre-made buttons of everyone in the that's in the gallery. So if I can, just thinking now we can get the Zoom gallery on here as well. Actually, if I share my screen from the other Zoom, we should be able to see the gallery, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. So we'll show you how to, so inside of the instance, we give you some example buttons that are pre-made for you, so you don't have to do anything, but we'll show you how to use those and then how to write your own buttons from scratch inside using the Zoom variables.
Right, we'll show you the feedback first. I think this is each button. So the way we're getting the names onto the keys in the first place, you see Ben's name here on the first one, is using this variable, which is, so we're using the way that we look through the way that we constructed variables in the help file. So we've got the instance name, the type of variable we want to use, and then we've got which variable it is, and how we're sourcing that, which in this is gallery position, and it's 0, 0, which is here. And then we just type that into the text box, and that gives it. So each separate one would be, each gallery position for the first row would be 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3. And the easiest way to get that into here, instead of having to look through that massive list of files, is to just start typing. So we know we want username for gallery position. And that this one doesn't exist, but we can just use 0, 1, 0, which will give us the next row down.
So the as you're building the buttons together, you have this option here to autocomplete them, right, which is part of it. And that will depend on when ZoomOSC is actually able to fill those variables through. But the reason we're showing you it this way is because you can build your controller once, bring it into any Zoom meeting, and it will automatically populate with that data. You could type out the usernames every time, and that's how folks have done it in the past. What we want to do is use the variables to be able to give you a repeatable way of building the controller one time and moving it into any meeting and have it automatically brought up to speed when the list command is output.
I just need to figure out to get the other gallery on here,
Sure.
And then we can see the gallery moving around. Which is
Yeah, absolutely.
Show.
Maybe I can pump it over to Benjamin for a second to show kind of how Benjamin has scaled this out, and then we can come back and look at again how to construct it, so people can see what happens once you have it all together. Would you be comfortable with that, Benjamin?
Sure thing. Hello, folks. Ed, could you pass a co-host my way when you have a second? I'm running Bitfocus Companion on my Mac right here. I'm signed in this device here. And then on my iPad here, I'm connected to Bitfocus Companion's tablet interface. And right now I'm looking at the same page that Ashley's looking at, just my version of it. And if I was a co-host, I could mute and unmute people by just tapping them.
You
And
should be
there
a
you go.
co-host there, Benjamin.
Would you look at that? Ed, could you just talk for just a moment? Just keep
Absolutely.
talking. And then if I just hit Ed's name right now, we just can't hear Ed anymore. Sorry, Ed. And if I tap him one more time, then we can hear Ed one more time if he allows us.
There
Excellent.
we go.
There you go.
I
Quite
got a little
magical.
message that said I was muted.
Excellent. So then, right, continuing down, right, you have video on off, same idea. And on my local side, I can pin and unpin or spotlight or unspotlight. Keep in mind, this is all based on the gallery position keys. So let's spotlight me, Ashley, and Andy. Well, would you look at that? Now we have a multi-spotlight if you're in Zoom, and if you're on the stream, you might not see this right now, but come join us in the webinar to enjoy all the fantastic bits. And then I can also hit a button to clear the spotlight as well. And I can also change my own gallery view or speaker view there.
Yeah, and I definitely want to underline just how important that is. So one of the new things that we introduced in ZoomOSC is the multi-pinning system. And this is a really, really fast way to create super sources inside of Zoom. I mean, normally we're used to going through and trying to find the person we're looking for, add them to a pin one by one and build it up over time, right? Benjamin did it in under a second with the buttons laid out
there you
just
go.
there.
And
right?
I just tap your name. That's it. It's that simple. And building off that briefly, if I scroll down just a little bit further in my pages here,
So Benjamin, just so that the Facebook and YouTube audience can see it also, would you mind showing us that multi-pin and multi-spotlight one more time?
Sure thing. Do you think you have it? Set up? So that'll work out.
Yeah. You know what? Are you able to spotlight yourself first?
I think I can.
Great. Now they should be able to see it.
But I'm seeing one minor issue. Andy, can I hand it back to you for a second, and then
Absolutely, yeah.
I'll pick it up.
No problem at all. It's one of those things where when we're trying to present these things inside of the same meeting that we're streaming from, making sure everybody has an equitable experience viewing is sometimes a little tricky. But the purpose of this is, again, it's a controller that you can bring anywhere to be able to do pretty much anything you can do with Zoom without having to go through Zoom's user interface. That's the power of ZoomOSC. It's a remote control and it's a feedback system. And what we've done with the companion instance is given you both, whereas previously, we'd use the generic OSC instance, you reference our API, and you build it out that way. Thanks to this new instance, you can do everything from drop-down menus. You don't have to know OSC at all. It's just there working in the background in service of building control services that you want to make. So that's the kind of thing that that we're really interested in doing and making it in a flexible way so that you can get to the thing you're trying to do very quickly. How you doing, Benjamin? I can keep stretching if you need me to. Yep.
And that, Andy, you're absolutely right. We did just a Zoom demo, Jeff Widgren and I, twice in February, and the difficulty of showing how to do things in Zoom when you're in a Zoom is very tough. So for our audience, just understand that what they're trying to do is difficult because we're within the meeting. If they were just controlling this meeting, it would be a much different thing. But trying to show you how they're controlling it and doing it at the same time make it just that much more difficult. So Benjamin, I think it looks like you're okay now.
We're all good now. Apologies, we're sorting out the last kinks here. So anyway, one more time, this multi-spotlight bit. So if I spotlight myself, Andy, Ashley, and Ed, I think you should be able to see a 4-up just built on the fly. At least it looks that way in the meeting. I'm not sure how it looks on the stream yet. And I can also dismiss this spotlight with just the push of a button as well, clear spotlight, and I can move myself back to gallery as well. Now, what I'm really excited about, and this is me being very excited about this feature I've been working on recently, is selections. So just like I could build that piece just live, let's say I wanted a little bit more certainty that that's how it was going to look. Instead, I could select the users and then select an action. So I could select Andy, me, Ashley, and Ed from these keys here, and then I could hit any one of these side selection options. So, for example, I could hit I could toggle video, which is a little frustrating since now all of our videos are off, but that's fine. I'm sure it'll all come back in a second. Or I could hit spotlight, right? Where now we all come back together in this super source. Now there's a little bit of a restriction right now. We're working getting that removed to to keep your spotlights moving, generating as fast as possible. But until then, you have this like brief delay.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is part of that philosophy too of like open development that we're really interested in, because this feature, the ability to select multiple users and then call an action on them, is not something that Companion supports. So this is moving outside of our own module. We're basically adding functionality back to Companion so that other integrators in the future can pull this code and make dynamic, multi-modifier key actions inside of it. So we really do believe in this sort of ecosystem of, bringing up all the OSC integrations, and that's been true, from Companion to other applications that we, are doing development on, Isadora, Universe, those kind of things. We really do believe that a rising tide will lift all ships. So
yeah, and I think what Ben showed there with selection stuff, like he managed to get that working within a few days of looking at the code on Companion, and I think I mean what we have there in the module, I think, is quite extensible. It's pretty easy to add, it wasn't hard for you to add that in, was it, Ben? It was quite a simple thing.
You got it. Yeah, that's the benefit of open source software here for sure. The Companion module is open source, and you're all free to find it on GitHub and modify as you will. And I'm gonna keep developing features as I see them. One more little piece on this bit right here is so that was all by gallery position. But let's say I knew what my show was going to look like ahead of time, and instead I wanted to have buttons ready for the people in it. Let's say, I had an audience of 100 in a meeting, and I know that there are going to be 10 presenters I'm going to want to perform actions on. Although this looks very similar here, this is a selection by target ID, which has been recently enabled. So what this does is this isn't a list of the gallery view, it's just a list of participants, and I can load those in using the target list commands. So this functions very similarly, right? I can add people to our spotlight here. I can do all the things we could do otherwise. But the benefit is that the squares won't rearrange on me. They'll just stay as they are.
Right, and that's a common thing that we hear back and forth on, is like people ask like, oh yeah, I'd love to have a controller that represents the gallery view. My question is like, do you? Do you really want to? Because people turning their videos on and off all the time, remapping your keys might cause frustration, ergonomic frustration when you're trying to, that presenter was always there, and you have this muscle memory that's built while you're operating the show, and then it changes on you. That can be quite confusing. So while it's good to have the usernames on the keys, as that checksum, the benefit of target IDs is, again, you get the benefit of building the controller once, but you get the sort of solidity of having it kind of in place. You know where that key is. You know who's going to be there. And that's why target IDs were the original workflow of ZoomOSC, and I think they still have value, even though we've added a ton of different operating modes. So I think that's still something of value to keep in mind as we build that. Chuck, I noticed you had your hand up.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you, and especially Benjamin. So Benjamin actually, I hired Benjamin to come and help me fix it, because I was trying to use Target ID on a PC machine to do this. And he told me, really, it works so much easier if you use a Mac. So I had a paying client for a 1-day event, 2-day event, actually. It was a 1.5 day. And Benjamin helped me out, get it all set up. So I had it ready. And throughout the event, they were doing interviews back and forth. They were doing sometimes calling out other people from the audience. And because I had Gallery ID on, I could see them immediately. And now here's, Ed, you'll like this. So I had my 2ME over here set up with an actual super source from my Zoom room pinned. But then I would go back and cut from that to, I would spotlight that using ZoomOSC. And then I would clear spotlight and then multi-spotlight the same two people. And go back and forth like that. And I did that all day long, guys, and it worked. And Benjamin, you blew my mind with this. And it completely changed how I'm doing events for people now. It was really great. So I just wanted to thank the whole team, and I'm super excited about other things that I can do for other clients with this.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll even say, I just did an event actually with Justin Herminghaus, who's here on the panel, where they had a Q&A session, and was going to be 4 people speaking and cutting between them. And I kind of wish I had the side selection that Benjamin developed, because I actually built my actions. I knew the people coming in, so I was using target IDs, and I was able to build this thing. but I was actually putting for every down button press when I wanted to do a 4-up, I did a separate action to get them in the order with delays to get them in the order that I wanted. And it would have been great if I just could have side selected and said, oh, I want A, B, C, and D, and popped them up and all that. It was would have made it easier, but it still worked. What I was doing still worked. It just took me more time on the programming side. So Benjamin, thanks, man, and I look forward to using that.
And these are all things that, you know, as you're seeing what we've created here, these are in the nightly build section of Companion. So it's not on the latest official release, because that release, you know, goes out very slowly. That's after it has a lot of testing done by Bitfocus's team and things like that. So it's been, Ashley, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been over a month since they've updated that, perhaps even longer, right? Like,
yeah, it's been. I think since I started working on it, I don't think it's.
Oh, wow,
I think it might have incremented 1 point, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're very slow about that. So if you want to get these features, you go grab them from the nightly build section when you go to the downloads, and that's where you can pick up this stuff. And you can also check out our Slack where we're, you know, giving beta builds before even they pull it into the night release. I've noticed some commentary asking to show like, okay, that was cool, but like, how did we get there? Like, how did we build those buttons? How did we get them mapping out? Ashley, do you think you're in a good spot to be able to show some of that?
Yeah.
Awesome.
We'll probably
And folks, if you have any questions, make sure you get them in early so that we can make sure we have enough time to answer them all. We don't want to have anybody go home, or well, I guess you're probably already home, but we don't want you to be missing out on any answers to any questions you have. So get them in the comments if you're on Facebook or YouTube, and then use the Q&A feature here in Zoom. Get those questions in so we can get the info you need to you.
Cool. Yeah, so as you saw in Ben, you can see how that or the gallery position things like that, the outcome of how you would want to use this. And we did go through the text in here, so that's how you set that. And then in order to get so the action that you would want to send is the gallery position, and then what as the user, you would just select the gallery position and type in for the user identifier, you would have the gallery, the y-axis and then x-axis, because that's how it is in Zoom. I'm not sure why they provide it that way around. But, then any action that you want to send, you would choose in this box here. Now, the ones we supply as presets, this is actually a preset that's available in Companion. So if you go to the button, click presets here, it should show up. It seems to not.
Again, nightly build a companion. You know,
I think that does look like a companion issue.
Yeah.
Does that show in yours, Ben?
I've got it for you if you wanna trade.
Yeah.
Okay. Real quick, let me steal from you. Thanks. So don't mind the rest of it. Sorry. So I'm just like Ashley was in Bitfocus Companion here, and under you got you can click on a button, see more information, and all of that. But if I go to presets here and I find a new page I haven't touched, I can click on this button here to get a preset, and let's say I want to talk about spotlights right now. So here's all the keys for spotlights, and then all I have to do is just drag them in. They auto-update with names, and they auto-update with their spotlight status, I believe, or they will soon. So you could imagine, let's say I wanted everybody's spotlight status, like my top row of my gallery in there, and then, I really want, let's say audio status, there we go. So I could grab then the next row of audio status, and you can see, since I'm unmuted, I am green, but Iris and Andy are not, so then they show as red. And Andy's demonstrating that right now. Thank you, Andy. You can kind of see where this goes from here. And then from each of these buttons, you could then go in and modify additional pieces or see how they work. It's a really great template or example, or just potentially exactly what you need.
Yeah, we're trying to lean into, like last time we were on, we talked a lot about APIs and OSC syntax and how things part together and got really technical. With this, we're really trying to drive home drag and drop workflows, selection list workflows, things like that, so that you don't have to understand any of that. You just know, hey, this is how companion instances work. This is how I want to set up my buttons. You can go grab the thing you're looking for and pull it right onto the page. And then if you want more customization, you can go look at the help document and see how to name your own variables and things like that. And we have some videos on our YouTube channel that show you, like, for example, how to have it so you can see all the names, you can pin people, and then keys can turn yellow if they raise their hand or something like that in the Zoom call. So you can see the kind of the breakdown of that. I don't think we'll spend too much time showing exactly the architecture of that because we got a lot of ground to cover today. But you know, I'd love to, Ashley, I don't know if you're able to get to a point where you can show the gallery view side by side with the buttons. And
I think it's going, because we're in that meeting, I think it's always going to give us that. I don't think there's a way we can get it side by side on the same screen.
You don't have a method of like doing scan convert and passing it in. That'd be helpful.
Good idea. I don't know how to do that.
It would be neat if it was possible, but also not mission critical.
Yeah.
Because I can show. So I'll show one other thing while we're doing this. I'm going to change my video source over to vMix for a moment, and this is going to be a capture display. So, you know, I want to emphasize that the way ZoomOSC is built is designed to be an open architecture for access. So what you're looking at right now is the Isadora media server, and it's using the same output command that ZoomOSC is using to feed the companion, but in a different way. So if I click this manually update list button, I'm making Isadora aware of all of the users on this call. You can see it kind of filling out this list on the left-hand side. And I'm able to select anybody from this list, like, I don't know, Jeff, and I'll say, you know, hi, Jeff, and I'll send a direct message. And I can see that that's gone through. And I've sent it actually to all panelists on this one because it's set to do a copy. If anybody is in the panel, they'll get a copy of that message. And I can see based on various different statuses that, like, Chuck at one point had his hand raised to come into the panel. I can see that represented here. And if I wanted to call an action on Chuck, I'd be able to switch over to the hand raised section, clear that list out, and pop back and forth and build controls like that. If I drag over my my ZoomOSC window, so you can actually see us, let me kind of compress that a little bit. I can pick folks who are available. Let me go grab Iris, and then I'll pin. And if I look back here, you'll see that Iris is pinned to my display, and I can now I can even search this list if I want to go find. Well, let's see here. Maybe I want to look for Chris. I'll search here, and there's Chris on this list of all the participants in the call. I click on Chris, and then I hit pin, and then back in ZoomOSC, there's Chris. So this is again, it's one architecture that can serve all these different integrations simultaneously, and that's the power of using ZoomOSC as an architecture for integrators and people who want to, like, make these surfaces that they can distribute and hand out and things like that. That's where this becomes super powerful. For the end user, all they know is the left-hand side of my screen, right? They're not aware of all this additional programming that's gone into the back end here. If I kind of give you a macro shot of, like, this whole logic engine that's powering all that, you don't have to know that. You can have somebody who understands that, create it, hand it off, and then your operators only need to be conscious of what's on the left-hand side of my screen. And again, it's all one architecture. So it's not like we have a separate direct pipeline to Companion that's separate from all these other applications that can do this. It's one architecture that serves all the different integrations that are available. So that's something that, you know, we're really adamant about doing it that way, so that, you know, no matter where you're at, you're able to build something up or use something with one common backing infrastructure. And again, I'll say that these are all powered by that list output from ZoomOSC Pro. That's why I say that the list output is the most powerful command in ZoomOSC, because it allows you to make something that can instantly learn everything about a Zoom meeting without having to go build an SDK app, you know, for Companion that has its own login client and all of that stuff. We do all that for you, and then we just externalize that information so any app can be aware of that stuff. So for apps that support bidirectional communication or that can add it, that's where it gets really powerful to help elevate those production workflows in Zoom. Benjamin, I see you've got a side-by-side of your gallery view and your buttons. Do you want to?
No, let's see. Let's see what happens. I'm not sure if this is really high resolution enough for you to be able to see a full understanding, but
real quick,
you can
I
get
think
the idea
the
here.
Facebook went down.
I just did notice that. Let me see. Sorry.
Who played the music?
Sorry to interrupt you guys.
That's all good. It looks like it went private or something like that.
Interesting. Chris, can you go? Yeah, because it shows I'm still pushing out.
Oh, I'm seeing it.
Yep.
We
You're
just came back. Great. Back where we were a moment ago. I was going to show some pins. Let me show you some pins. So if I'm just sitting here on my, let's say this is feeding some kind of switcher, and I know I want a 4-up at some point of Jeff, Andy, me, and Justin, and I grab all of us and I pin all of us together. Then I could take this feed and I could put it somewhere else, right? I could pop it into wherever else we're going. And that's kind of what makes it really powerful. And you can kind of see how it just lines up there.
Could you show, going back to the gallery view to clear out the pins, could you drag somebody in your gallery view and we could watch your button move over?
Oh, that sounds like fun. Let's do that. I'm going to hit my combo gallery unpin button, and then I'm going to, let's see. So if you watch my screen and, let's see, where this is it? Huh, interesting. If you watch my screen and I drag around Iris, ta-da! Iris moved on my buttons. If I drag Jeff, ta-da, you can see Jeff moved all the way to the left. Or if I drag Brent and I move Brent all the way over, we move Brent over, and you can see the selection carries through, right? All the status will update accordingly. And then if I release my view again, we'll restore the same state.
And again, this is because the reason all those statuses move together is because they're not about the person, right? It's not, you didn't hard code in the name or something like that. It's about their position on screen. And when that changes, it gets all the properties of that person. So as this gallery view is mutating, people turning video on and off and all of that, it's aware of those changes that are happening so that you can build things out. And again, that's the basis for this. That's also the basis for our shaders, right? That create ISO feeds of the gallery view. It's the basis for all these different technologies. It's the same output that we're just giving you a programmatic way of understanding the gallery view of Zoom into other applications. So that's something we're super excited about. Ed, I don't know if we got any ZoomOSC specific questions we want to hit before we jump into some of the other stuff in the pipeline that we're excited to share about.
Oh boy, do we have questions.
Great.
So stand by. Let me start looking through.
And else, Ed, while you're doing that?
Sure.
Well, I just wanted to say, so what Benjamin just showed, I actually saw a bigger production house who was doing a bigger meeting on Zoom. And what they did is they were actually using a Blackmagic design. What's their multi-view box called? The multi-in and out?
I think it's called the multi-view.
Okay, yeah. So they were using that with separate Zoom machines to show a 3x3 grid of different audience members. And they got lazy or something, so they weren't going through and changing the people in that grid very often. And I got my head, I'm like, that's nuts. I can build a new 3x3 grid. Can we do 9 multi-pins? I think we can do 9.
Yeah, you can do that's the cap.
So I can build a new 3x3 grid like many times over using this functionality, and then just cut to it as an audience reaction shot because it gives them some more close-ups than the showing your entire gallery, and that just blew me away. And I showed it to the guy, and he's just like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Because I showed him, I can just hit this. The one problem I have, Andy, is the number of buttons on the StreamDeck, right?
Yeah.
So does the gallery position, as long as you do the math and figure out the grid, does that change? Or if I go to page 2 on gallery, how does that?
When you change pages of the gallery view that's currently on screen will be reflected on your keys. It basically is changing the gallery view to a different set of people, but it's still the same. You could basically imagine it's like the new page is really just a mutation of the current page, and right in place it should be able to. So, and we've given gallery pagination commands in ZoomOSC, so you could build a controller that was your subset of the gallery view, scaled to whatever size you need to get the right number of videos to fill your StreamDeck, and then keep 2 of them for forward and back for pages. So then if you need to go pull somebody up, you can go through all your pages and you can lay them out and do whatever routing you need to do. And I love that you mentioned the Blackmagic workflow, because we're seeing a lot, like basically kind of 2 different camps of production, where you have all in hardware and the software or hardware software hybrid workflows, right? Because you can absolutely achieve this by go make a room of computers and hook them all up with SDI and put them in multi-views and pass them in. And that's really great, especially if you're going out to broadcast, right? If you're sending that out, having all that in hardware is awesome. It's not so great when you need to loop it back in, right, or have a controlled immersive experience in the call where you actually need to modify the call. What those hardware's workflows are doing is they're working around the call, right? They're breaking it into pieces, they're sending it out and sending it up for broadcasting. With ZoomOSC, again, it's I think there's real benefit to the hardware workflows for sure, and we don't replace that. We integrate with it, right? So we give you the ability to extend that workflow back into the meeting, but also to be able to do all the stuff that hardware can do, or a large percentage of it, through software interfaces and flexible controllers and open source software and things like that. So that's where we try to bring those workflows down to a different level of consumer who doesn't have that multi tens of $1,000s budget to go build out a whole SDI backbone for their entire studio. So that's some of the thinking there.
Hey, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in here and ask some of these questions we got here. And honestly, it's a good time we stop because some of these might take us a little bit back. So you guys let me know if they take us too far back and we'll just jump to the next one. But the first one up I got here, and I just lost my screen. Here we go. The first one I got here is from the Facebook side, which is from Ben Dennis. And if I'm messing up your name, I'm so sorry. I'm legendary for that. So the question is, so you don't have to update names each meeting any longer with the variable, is his question.
That's correct. Yeah, you build out your controller once, and then it travels with you to the meetings, and it learns who's in it.
Got it. So the next one I got here is again from Ben Denny. So you don't have to. I'm sorry, I put that in there twice. The next one was from Randy Regis. In Bitfocus Companion, a separate program language or support. I'm sorry. Is Bitfocus Companion a separate programming language or support other languages such as Java, SQL, etc.? And is ZoomOSC dependent on Bitfocus or other tools can be used?
So I'll take the second part of that question. I'll send the first part to Ash. ZoomOSC is not dependent on anything. It requires a controller. So it requires open sound control, and that's it. So once you have a QLab or Isadora or Bitfocus or Universe or any of the different programs that can communicate via OSC, software or hardware, you're good to go. Some programs will be able to talk to OSC. Some will be able to listen back to OSC. Some will be able to do both. A lot of them are free. A lot of them are like MIDI to OSC converters. So ZoomOSC can be used with any of that stuff. It's built on an open protocol for a reason. We don't want to necessarily have a custom bridge to every application we want to integrate with. We want to build it on an open protocol. And honestly, I see people using it with programs I've never heard of before, to be completely frank. Just because it supports that open protocol, it can go to more places than even I can go with it. Ashley, you want to talk about developing on Companion?
Yeah, so Companion is based on it's in JavaScript, and it uses Node for all the server-side stuff. So all the sending OSC messages, receiving OSC messages is all in Node, in JavaScript, Node.js. You can write it. It's been written so that you can write your own modules for it, which is what the ZoomOSC module is. It's just a module that you can submit to Bitfocus to be pulled into the core of of Companion. So the code for all this is on Bitfocus's website, on Bitfocus's GitHub, sorry, and it's all accessible and can be. If you want to make changes to it, feel free to submit a pull request with your changes, and we'll look at it. It's the answer to that, which Ben did. And he wants to make a comment.
Yeah, just really briefly on the developing side, it's really not hard as long as you know some basic JavaScript. It's not hard to get a hang with it, and it's a really lovely thing to work with. It's just on the Companion side, they integrate all the difficult pieces, and now that Ashley and the team have built out most of the ZoomOSC parts, it's really easy to extend if you want to integrate with some other features. And consider you can integrate with any other module as well, just by having the modules run side by side on Companion.
Yeah, there's lots of different devices on Companion. So if you don't use Companion, the devices you use are probably on there.
Yeah, so I'll let Chris jump on the next one here that we got in the queue.
So Chuck, actually, before he graced us with his presence, did ask on the Facebook side, how can I easily make multiple pages for an event of, say, 150 people?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a couple different options. Depends on how you want to build it out. So you could use pagination as one option, but I really like the approach that the mobile interface takes with scrolling, because at that point it's kind of like it's all there. And I know, like Benjamin was showing that before, where you're on an iPad, right? And you're just scrolling up and down, and you're moving through all those different pages really quickly. So, you lose the benefit of like that capacitive button, but you gain the flexibility of a touch interface of sliding around and inertia and all of that stuff. So when you're trying to zoom around the screen, that can be really helpful. I'd also say that there is a benefit to building off of what we're starting to do with this multi-user integration, where you might have a physical Stream Deck used to select actions and a virtual Stream Deck used to select users. Because then you get the capacitive feedback of the action button that you really care about when you want to make a multi-pin or something like that, but you get the flexibility of quickly scrolling through, and because you can mix and match all these different companion pages and build something out there. So that could be another way of thinking about it if we can get it across devices, which it seems like it would be feasible to do that inside of Companion because of how it's built. So that could be a helpful way of thinking about the problem.
So the next question, it says, it's from Mike Graham. It says, if you're using the gallery position as the variable as opposed to target ID and new people join or some people turn off their camera, do the names on the button shift dynamically? And how does that affect other buttons you may have set up before the event begins? Example, like multi-pin or multi-spotlight.
Exactly. So that's where you want to, when you're creating your control, you want to premeditate these things because, yes, it will update live. And if your workflow is based on proximity of buttons to each other, gallery position is probably not the right variable to use. Thankfully, we provide 5 others, right? So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can build them out. You can identify them in a multitude of ways where you might want to have, like I say, you might want to have your actions in a certain place that's accessible. Like maybe you want a row of just people with their hand raised, right? And then below that, you want to have actions you might want to call on that person, kind of like I did in my Isadora interface, but you could think of it spatially laid out in a Stream Deck. Maybe you want to have your panel assigned to target IDs, but then your audience allow that to freely form based on gallery index, because frankly, when I'm mixing an event, I'm not really reading everybody's name. I'm kind of like, oh, that person who's on the second row with that yellow box around, that's where they are. And I just want to know that I have a button to hit on the other side that will reference that index, right? Sometimes I'm not thinking about the people. I'm thinking about the places where they are. So that's kind of the distinguishing workflow for me. And I welcome those who use this integration to discuss how they have imagined it. Because again, it's super flexible. You can build it out however you want. When I think about it, I think about if I know who the person is and I want to be working with them, I'll use a target ID. If I don't know who they are, but I can identify them by where they are, then I'll use a gallery position or a gallery index instead.
And Andy, just a quick question. I think with the gallery index, if someone turns off their camera, they drop off you won't see their name on the buttons anymore, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, Richard did
confusing.
recently add something to Companion that generates essentially a list of every user in the call, and that lets you target people who don't have their cameras or anything on because they're still in the call. So that does exist in Companion, and it lets you. So you could say set up a group of 4 people, and then you can dynamically jump through the people. So you could set up a group of 4 people, press a button that would take you to the next 4, and that would use the same buttons that would be on the screen. I don't have a demonstration of it now, but that does exist for in Companion, but not in. It's not part of ZoomOSC, but it does. Companion has the logic to figure that out.
That's awesome. Great. Thank you. Randy Regis had asked, can Bitfocus Companion display live preview on the button itself or pictures instead of standard colors as we're seeing right now?
Ashley, do you want to talk about what Companion does and doesn't allow in instance feedback, and then I can talk about how other apps can do this on the Stream Deck?
Yeah, so for instance feedback at the moment, we just support the things that are in the instance feedback in that list. So setting foreground colors and background colors of buttons, and so text color and background color by the properties that exist in there for each user and for some properties of the call. So like if the call is in call is happening and things like that. So the way we got the text of the button is set by a variable, which is slightly different to the instance feedback. But I'm not sure if you can set. I think you probably can set the instance feedback to set an image as a button, but it doesn't exist in.
Right, and that's part of the. So we love Companion because of how flexible it is, but there's also it has limits like this, and I think that's a lot of these are architectural and intentional because of what Companion is trying to be. And again, don't quote me on that because they've got a lot of developers thinking a lot of really cool things. But there are other applications that are more media server centric that actually can do this. So Central Control is one of them, and you guys have had Joe DeMax on before, great developer thinking really creative things, and that would be one program that can do it. Universe Control, also another one that can pull an NDI and bring NDI onto your keys. Which is really cool, right? And you'll have, so be sure to ask the Universe team when they come by for their session on AV Tech Talks about how that works, because you can build an integration where you have using their new ZoomOSC device and their NDI onto the StreamDeck device. You can sync those up, and now you could have little videos of everybody playing on your StreamDeck keys and actually be able to call Zoom actions based on that. So if you're looking for that kind of stuff, that's where you want the media server, because that program has an understanding of NDI, right? Companion doesn't have an NDI discovery server. It doesn't have, all that other stuff, that baggage, and they want to keep it lightweight. People are compiling this thing on Raspberry Pis, like they can't do all of that stuff, right? So there's other devices that might be able to help negotiate some of that, but ultimately it's a lightweight application because of how network based and how flexible it is. For applications that use a serial connection to get right in there and have this whole big media server behind them, it's feasible for them to do something like that.
And just to pause for 1 second, if you aren't familiar with Universe Control, you're in luck, because next week they're coming by AV Tech Talks to give us an overview. We're going to have Sherman Patton, who's going to do a demo. He's actually going to show us a ZoomOSC integration that he's built using Universe Control, and we're going to have a couple of representatives from the company there to show us a couple other new features. So if what Andy just said made no sense because you don't have never heard of Universe Control, just come back next Monday and you'll learn a little bit about it and see some really cool stuff. The Seventh Scroll had asked, how much RAM would you say is best to run Zoom and ZoomOSC using Companion and a StreamDeck for the same live stream?
Well, I would say it depends on how many people are going to be in the call, because ultimately you're going to be limited by video bandwidth and other factors well before RAM utilization is going to hit you. And it also depends on the resolution of the meeting and what you're doing and how many displays you have up and all those kind of things, right? So I'd say, yeah, like Chuck's answer, go put 128 gigs in there and then you're definitely covered. I think, honestly, ZoomOSC does not consume RAM in a way that Zoom doesn't. So defer to their guidance and then multiply by 2. Because that, if you're going to run them both together. Now that's a simplistic way of doing it, but I'm not going to be able to give you a super specific answer. I'll tell you that when I build computers for clients or do things like that, 16 gigs is my minimum now. And usually for production systems, I'm in the 32 to 64 range. If that computer is really going to be running both your Zoom calls and your Vision mixer, and is going to be the one responsible for doing the RTMP encode at the end of the day, or the loop back in, yeah, I would certainly be at 32 gigs for a system like that, especially if we're talking 1080p production and a 1080p Zoom meeting with multiple ingests and NDI and all that stuff going on.
That makes sense. Leland Mosley here in Zoom asks, just wanted to be clear, you are getting instance feedback on Windows. Oh, are you getting instance feedback on Windows?
Yes. So we can do instance feedback on both platforms, and I think ultimately I just want to remind everybody this is a beta integration, so the intention is yes. Whether or not you're encountering an issue with that, that could be a bug. That could be, again, it's 3 things that have to align here for this to work. ZoomOSC has to do its job. Our Companion integration has to do its job, and Companion itself, the thing that we're built on top of, has to be doing its job. So all these 3 things need to align, and all of these programs are having weekly or nightly or our own timeline of updates. So keep getting those to synchronize is something that right now there's functionality that might work on one platform better than another because the thing that it depends on is different, right? But they're all different programs that are trying to act similarly. And what we're seeing right now is this tightening where they're coming closer and closer and closer and closer. And then once we get it, once they're all in sync, we're going to lock that, and that's going to be the build that's going to go out on the external integration. So we are really, really interested in your feedback right now. Those of you who are testing the nightly builds, please join us in our Slack group, which you can get to through our website, or ping us on Discord. I'm in the AV Tech Talks Discord, and you can hit me there. And we're doing developer roundtables. We're doing things like that just to try to get this feedback, get an understanding of what you need and how it's performing on your system, so that we can help bring all these different things into alignment. And sometimes that's us fixing something on the companion module. Sometimes that's us changing something in ZoomOSC's architecture, or sometimes it's opening a pull request to the way that companion itself works. You'll see that we recently modified the generic OSC implementation of companion itself to support multi-word strings that they were having some issues with styled quotes and things like that. So we're changing across the board. We're about to push stuff to Figure 53's repo and affecting the way that QLab handles OSC. So we're really, really out there trying to be advocates for the protocol and to help elevate those integrations to get them right. So hopefully over the next couple of weeks, you'll see all these programs starting to move into more standard compliance with the protocol, and then the behavior will be the same across platforms.
Speaking of new abilities, Frank Henney asked, what new abilities are you close to being ready in ZoomOSC, and what's your long-term crazy wish list?
Awesome. Yeah, I love that question. So things that are coming soon. So as you see, we do roughly weekly, sometimes bi-weekly updates to ZoomOSC, and most of those are just adding interfaces that are requested by users. So if there's a specific command that you're looking for that's part of your production workflow that you wish you had a button for that you don't, let us know, and we will tell you usually within a day whether or not that button's available in the SDK or whether it's not. For the things that are, we typically can get them in rather quickly. We've built ZoomOSC in a very modular way, and we're able to do that. There are a couple of things, though, that Zoom's SDK either doesn't allow, we have to open a feature request for them to add it for us to be able to implement it, or it's there but it's not functional. So you've heard me talk about this before. Zoom's SDK is an interesting animal. It doesn't really I'll be polite and just say it doesn't have a lot of great documentation. It doesn't really do what it says it's supposed to do. So a lot of it is trial and error on our end. And there's two interfaces in particular that are really important for us to add to ZoomOSC, in my opinion, that we've actually done all the logic for and we're waiting. And those are on breakout rooms and on filters and backgrounds. Now, filters and backgrounds in the AV production space are not as common, right? But in the world of theater or performing arts, they actually are. They play a huge role. So being able to remotely set somebody's virtual background or video filter actually is quite important to teachers and theater makers and folks in that space. So we think that's really important. On the broadcaster side, obviously the breakout room management is critical. And let me tell you a little bit about what it's going to be able to do once we have that online. We all know about Zoom's pre-registration for breakout rooms, right? You can have, I think it's like a maximum of 200 people in the call, and that can serve you well if they log in with the right account and all of that stuff, all of those different checkboxes have been ticked, and you only need 200 people pre-registered in your meeting. What we're able to do is using the power of OSC and the logic and the node editors that can be behind it, we can pre-register all of them. If we know what their usernames are going to be, they join the call, it activates a little piece of logic inside of ZoomOSC, and it shuffles them off to the breakout room when they join. We can do things like that. We can do things like, pre-registration only works when you join, but what if you want to have an event where you have a collect and then a breakout and then a regroup? Well, you couldn't do that with the pre-registration system, but if we gave you a button inside of ZoomOSC to say, hey, everybody with a target ID, go send them to this breakout room, or everybody who has a specific substring of their name. We're doing this for another client of ours where they need to, they're basically doing like a multi-year reunion on Zoom. Everyone with their class year is going to get sorted into breakout rooms via ZoomOSC so that we know, like, all right, everybody with this suffix in their name, if it contains that, shuffle them into this breakout room. Otherwise, shuffle them into this breakout room. Then break down all the breakout rooms, bring them back for the final slideshow or whatever that is going to be. Those are the kind of workflows that we're really excited about bringing into ZoomOSC, but it depends on Zoom, frankly, getting their act together with the SDK and fixing bugs that have been open for months and months and months, and they haven't solved. So we hope those come soon. As soon as they do, that'll be the basis for ZoomOSC 4.1. When we add those two interfaces, that'll be 4.1. We'll keep doing point updates until we get to that point.
Great. Andrew Lipnick here in the webinar asks, do you see individual attendees in StreamDeck in addition to participants? I think he means panelists. Mm-hmm. Also, can you show us how to bring independent Zoom instances into one StreamDeck?
Gotcha. So Ashley, I'll punt the second part of that to you just to show how you can add the instance over and over again and specify them by IP. But to the first part, yes, you can, the list output from ZoomOSC will designate, it will tell you who it is, but also designate what role they are. So if you wanted to have something where like all of your participants are available, but some of them are grayed out because they're attendees, you could do something like that. Absolutely. It's aware of everybody in the call, but it's also aware of what role they are in the call. And that's also fairly powerful because to Zoom's eyes, attendee versus panelist is the same as participant versus host and co-host, right? It's all the same to them. So you can do the same type of styling if you want to highlight all the co-hosts in the call. Use the same structure that we provide, and you're able to do that. And that can be part of instance feedback. Ashley, do you want to show how to do multiple instances?
Yeah. So just show my screen. So it's pretty much as easy as just adding another if it wants to find it. Yeah. So if you just add, so you've got this original instance here, and we just add another instance called ZoomOSC 2 defaults to. You just need to make sure that your target and feedback ports are slightly different. So I've just run another version of ZoomOSC, which is this one. If I just match those and apply changes, should get an OK status in there. So you can see they're both pinging separate instances. And then if you just want to add an action for a different ZoomOSC instance, it will show up in your list of actions as ZoomOSC 2. And it's the same for feedbacks and everything as well.
So I'll tell you really quickly just a case study that I saw recently of somebody who did this and what they did it for. So there was a medical conference, and what was done was several laptops with dual monitors were set up on a long table behind the user. And then they had the StreamDeck integration talking uniquely to all of those ZoomOSC instances. In a traditional workflow, you might have to have a computer for every two participants, right? If you were to individually pin them. But with ZoomOSC, what you like to do is get more out of those displays, right? When you want to call somebody up into your preview or program bus for vMix, let's say in your Vision Mixer, when you call them in, it can go tell that computer to go select that person that you're looking for and then pump them in. And that's, again, why I think of ZoomOSC as a virtual PTZ camera when it's brought into a Vision Mixer. It's there, and it has a preset for everybody in the meeting or for multiple groups or things like that. And what you're doing in the Vision Mixer is doing the same workflow you do when you do a PTZ preset recall. You send a pin command over to it, it finds that person and brings them in. And just so long as you don't do a live take, right, where you accidentally have that camera in program and then you bump it into preview and it calls the switch over, as long as you avoid that, you can get access to your entire backlog of users two at a time from every computer that can contribute in, using OSC to manage who you're taking. And that can be a way to dramatically cut down on either operators sitting there at pinning machines trying to do that. I mean, there are productions, and I kid you not, where there are warehouses of people sitting in front of Zoom, pinning people, sending it into a Vision Mixer. I mean, that's a real workflow, and that is something that this can absolutely help you cut down on if you don't actually need to leverage all of those simultaneous users in a way other than the gallery view, which Zoom already gives you, right? And if we combine that with the shader, you can parse it out. So there's really, I think there's very little reason for that type of one operator for every computer workflow when you build something like this to be behind it.
And then, sorry, before we get too far, so I noticed, Ashley, you started an instance on your own machine. So that IP address was that kind of link local or host IP address. So if someone was going to control like a second computer that had a ZoomOSC, can you just show them where they would change that IP address?
Yes.
And then I guess a good question is that they would still want to change the ports as well, right? You can't have...
You would want to change it. Your target port could be the same, but the feedback port, you would want to change to a slightly different port. We did write a script that opens multiple instances of ZoomOSC and assigns separate ports to each instance just for testing. But you want ideally you would use a separate target port and a separate feedback port for each instance.
And that target IP right there, that's where
that's the target IP. Yeah, so that could be. Yeah.
And the important part is to remember that in Companion, you're sending the IP address of the computer that's running ZoomOSC. In ZoomOSC, you're setting the IP address of the computer that's running Companion. So they have to know each other's addresses so that they know to talk to each other.
Yeah.
So you have to do it in both interfaces if you're going to do it, and also make sure your firewalls are allowing communication on these ports. Sometimes we see folks who have either a more advanced antivirus than Defender or something like that, and it's locking up ports like this for certain protocols. Just make sure those are open so that the data can flow through your network.
Great. No, that's very important. Thank you for mentioning that, Andy. I think we have one more question here in Zoom, and then a few questions still coming in from the social media. Chris, you wanted to ask?
Yeah, so Orion Slater asks, is there a way to use both text and background feedback, i.e. change text red to green based on audio and background black to white based on video?
Yeah, that'd be the foreground text color in the feedback. So for each instance feedback, it allows you to set the foreground and background text colors.
And you can set multiple instance feedbacks on a single key. That's the distinction, right? It's that you'll have some of it controlled by part of one, and then other parts controlled by a different one. You just add as many instance feedbacks as you want. And Benjamin?
On that real quick, last time I checked, you can't set it to not control the foreground and the background. Right? For that, you'd have to control just the foreground or the background, but I believe you have to control both.
Right, okay. I think
I believe that's not possible yet.
Yeah, if you want to have, so if it's not something like the, like which part of the key you're trying to do, that's a good point. This would be a great feature request for Companion. So write this down. Allow me to have an inheritance option for one of those parameters. We actually asked Universe for this when we built the Universe integration. We want a pass-through option when we set the parameters of a key, so that it basically is just a layer on top of the existing, so that other instance feedbacks can stack. It's a great piece of feedback for them. Yeah, in theory it would work, but not with that in the way.
Nice. And Mike Grayab again came back in and said, did he hear someone say Zoom NDI out? I think that's when you guys were talking about the universe controlling Zoom NDI to get the little pips on the StreamDeck keys.
So let's talk about that, Ed. If you're good, I have some exciting news to share.
Yeah, you know what? I love exciting news. We do have a couple of questions, but we'll get back to those. So yeah, give us some exciting news.
So those of you who have frequented the Zoom Test Kitchen, which I highly encourage you to do, thank you, Jeff, for that. Have seen, and those of you who have non-video participants shown, you might see a instance here, Zoom ISO. Zoom ISO is something that a lot of you know that we've been working on, and this is the ability to get individual ISO outputs from Zoom as NDI or as other protocols or full screen outputs or things like that if you want to bring them into SDI or things like that. This has been by far the most requested feature from Zoom ever. 13,000 upvotes last time I checked on the request form. It is something that folks talk about quite regularly. There's been rumors since the summer that Zoom's going to do it, but we weren't sure how. Then we got inputs into Zoom, but not outputs. Now there's talk about it coming to Zoom Rooms, but we know that when it comes to Zoom Rooms, it'll likely just be a 3 NDI outputs instead of your physical display outputs or something like that, right? So we know this is coming, but we don't know exactly what shape or form it's going to be. Well, I'm very excited to share with you that we have done that. We're giving you the ability to get individual NDI outputs from Zoom, which is something that we know is really exciting. And I'm going to share some of how that works today. The one thing I want to address right off the bat is that we need to be clear about what we're asking for, because when people say individual NDI outputs from Zoom, I don't think they actually mean simultaneous full quality NDI outputs of every participant, because if they do, they mean they're going to go buy 100 gigabit switches and run fiber between all their computers in their studios, because that is the only way you're going to be able to leverage 49 1080p NDI feeds simultaneously. And boy, I hope those are beastly computers that are decoding and encoding all of that. So I don't think that's what people are talking about. So that's not what we've created. What we have created is a intelligent way of being able to select who you want at what quality, and to provide placeholder feeds of the people you don't have, so your vision mixers can bring them in even while they're offline or when you don't need them at full quality. So we've created a management system to allow you to allocate resolution to the feeds that you want and spare resolution on the feeds that you don't. And then when you pull that feed from thumbnail into preview, it'll bump resolution to that feed, so that the main problem has been that Zoom hasn't been aware of what your vision mixer is doing. There hasn't been a feedback line to tell Zoom, this is who I want, and this is whose quality is really important right now to me. So we've built that bridge in addition to being able to convert the participants into NDI, which is, half the battle right there. So we have that online, and I'll show you some of that. The other thing that we can do is we can give you perfectly clean outputs, and I'll show you just how clean that can get. But I'm talking about even the name with the little Wi-Fi indicator on there, which nobody can get rid of unless you do like a 1% punch in. These feeds are rendered completely clean. There's no branding or annotation on it. The only thing that's on it right now is our developer watermark, so that it doesn't get stolen. But that can be taken off with a license. This is something that we're really excited to share very soon. It's not something we're launching today, but it is something I want to show for the first time in public. So I'm going to switch my camera over to vMix. And what you're looking at here is a TeamViewer connection into a Mac. So apologies in advance for some of the oddities of this example I'm about to show you. But on this little pane over here, this is a list, just like ZoomOSC has, of all the different participants in the call. It actually is built on top of ZoomOSC Pro. So everything that ZoomOSC Pro can do, ZoomISO can do. And I'm going to go find Ed's video feed here, and I'm going to click Enable next to NDI. And what you'll see here after, it was instant for me in the room, but it takes TeamViewer a second to figure it out. What you see here is, for me, a super smooth 1080p output without any annotations of Ed. Now, if I switch over to vMix, and I actually try to discover this feed, and again, remember, you're looking at this through teleconferencing software. So it's looking a little choppy, but in my studio here, this is perfectly smooth. If I try to discover an NDI source, there's Ed on my drop-down list, and I can pull Ed right into my vision mixer here and be able to bring that in. And again, the only watermark is our watermark, and that's one that can go away. There's nothing in the bottom left, no other kind of visual debris, just that input feed. And it's coming in, and Ed, you can confirm this if you go to your video settings, but I believe you should be coming in at 1080p. You should be able to contribute to us at that resolution. If you look at your sending statistics, I believe that's what we're pulling you in at. If you want to confirm. I think you're muted.
Stand by, I'll confirm that. Looking at my video. Actually, I'm coming in 720, but that's a function of my camera.
Got it. Okay. Does anybody have a 1080 device on? Because I think what we're doing is we're probably upscaling Ed to 1080 on our end. It's received on this end. But if anybody, I know, Jeff, you've got one. All right, let me go over and find you on my. Let me switch over here. I'll change my input source. So I'll deallocate Ed. Oh, and just while I'm doing this, so this is a full screen window. You can drag this to any display that you want and get as many full screen displays as you need. If you want to do like an SDI workflow where you're turning this HDMI into SDI and bringing it in like that, this is a godsend for that. In addition to having the NDI available, I'll go ahead and delete that feed from Ed, and I'll go find Jeff on my drop-down list here. Here's Jeff's feed. Boom. All right, Jeff, what resolution are you sending at?
I was at 180. I've popped to 360. Now 720. See if it'll take us the rest of the way. There's 1080.
There it is. All right.
Yep.
There we go. So we're able to pull, and then back in my vision mixer again, I'll show you the discovery system. So if I pull up my vMix, right now I don't want Ed anymore, but I want Jeff. Jeff now shows up on this drop-down list. I select Jeff, and in a moment, there it is in the vision mixer, and it's perfectly clean, no visual debris.
That's
so
awesome.
That is ZoomISO. ZoomISO is coming very soon. It's something that we're going to pilot with the help of y'all. We're going to be gathering your interest and feedback and trying to build this out in a way that's really helpful to you. Like I say, we're using everything we learned about building ZoomOSC to make this happen. So it has an OSC interface to it that allows you to dynamically, at runtime, determine who needs to be at what resolution and how many need to have NDI enabled and who needs to be on thumbnail or on a preview. Right, I can show you in a second the placeholders for this, but the workflow is going to be very, very much OSC powered. Now, for those of you who have been trying out ZoomOSC Pro, I want to promise you that your money hasn't been wasted. ZoomISO is going to have an upgrade path from ZoomOSC Pro. So if you've already bought a license for ZoomOSC Pro, you'll be able to upgrade it to ZoomISO, and you get all the capabilities of both software at once. So money spent on a ZoomOSC Pro license today is counted against the ZoomISO license once we make that available. I'm not able to commit to a release date right now. I'm not able to commit to a price point. You have to understand that in addition to trying to figure out like what goes in and what kind of development it takes, there's back end royalties that we have to pay to certain license holders, and we're trying to figure out what those prices are going to be to figure out what our cost per endpoint is going to be. But we'll address all of that soon and share that information in public, very soon. But this is the first sort of demo of this that we've done publicly, and we're going to continue to do this and collect your feedback. And to that end, I wanted to say that in service of getting your feedback, we've created a form. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the Zoom chat right now. Maybe we can cross-post that to Facebook or YouTube if anyone has that availability. This is a form for feedback, both for interest in getting early copies of this software, in addition to being able to give us information about what you want it to do. I'll talk more about the ZoomOSC side of this in a second, but this is instrumental. I really believe in community-based development, and that's what ZoomOSC was, and that's what ZoomISO is going to be. What we've done so far is based on our best understanding of your workflow, but while we also have a production company and this application serves what we need it to do, we're not all of you, and we need to know how you want to use Zoom and what workflows make sense for dynamically allocating resolutions. I'll tell you that the idea of placeholder feeds, if I'll pop back to this, so I'll disable Jeff's output feed. I'll set the test card to always. Let me switch back to vMix so you can see this. This is a feature that came from a user. So if I say always display a test card and then I pull up Jeff's feed, now I have a placeholder feed that I can pull in at a very low res or thumbnail view, and it's got Jeff's name on it. So now I know how to identify this, and it still is labeled as the participant. And this will show if I want the user offline or things like that. So these type of peripheral workflows are really important to us, and the way that we learn about them is through your feedback. So I really encourage you to please fill that out and provide that information to us, because it really is crucial for us to be able to build this application. So that's kind of a first look into what ZoomISO is and what it can do. But I look forward to taking questions on that as we continue. So Ed, I also want to talk a little bit about ZoomOSC, but I think we can eat some questions off and then come back to that and talk about what we have on that side of things when we get there.
I think that's a great idea. But Andy, I think it's also worth mentioning for people right now who don't have Zoom OSC Pro, you guys have a special that ends today, don't you, on the Liminal website?
That's right. We are running a 15% off sale on ZoomOSC Pro. So if you go grab that today, it ends at midnight Eastern. So definitely encourage you to pick that up. It's 15% off right now on the monthly plan for 3 months. So it's a pretty deep savings, and it's an appreciation of all the feedback that we got from our office hours workshop and from panels like AV Tech Talk. So we definitely encourage you to take advantage of that. And again, it'll count against your ZoomISO in the future. So if you're excited about that, we're making use of that money. Won't be wasted. It'll go towards your ISO license when it's ready.
Great. And I'm going to post a link in the chats here so that people can quickly get to that website and buy that. Today, I actually just bought my annual ZoomOSC Pro license because I have clients already this month coming up. I have about a dozen shows where I'm going to be using ZoomOSC, so I'm very excited about it. But let's jump back into some of these questions that started coming in. Andreas Hernandez, and I think this is, a few people have asked a similar question. How many participants can I output at the same time with NDI using ZoomISO?
Sure. So you'll be able to, it depends on what you mean by output. If you mean generating an NDI feed that can be discovered by your vision mixer, unlimited. And that's what we view as like the most crucial step. If you want to have simultaneous 1080p outputs of users, we believe that that's going to land somewhere between 2 and 4 simultaneous pulls. Again, the reason that you would want multiple NDI feeds at full resolution would be if you're doing like vertical strips of users that you're laying across your screen when you want to arrange it that way. But honestly, once you get past 4, we're talking about like it's going to be so narrow that you wouldn't be able to really place the face in that anyway. Typically, what we normally see is things that are more similar to Zoom's gallery view, right? Where you have these smaller size squares on screen or circles or anything like that. And again, once you start scaling them down, the need for that resolution drops. So as we can probably get somewhere between 2 and 4 1080p fulls coming into that group. But once you get to that 5th one, you probably, if every video feed is 1/5 of a 1080p output stream, you're not going to need them at that, and we'll drop it down to be able to support the additional resolution. I'll tell you that the logic engine behind it is Zoom's resolution monitoring system. I promise you that Zoom will never allow you to get all users at full quality all the time. Their servers will never allow that on any app. I can pretty confidently say that, at least until our global network infrastructure gets a pretty substantial upgrade. That's not something that I think is going to be coming soon from Zoom. So we ultimately, we do have to be working with, there's no world, I think, where Zoom's going to release like every user at full quality all the time. And like I say, your own internal network is not going to be able to support that, most likely, right? Unless you're running fiber to all your computers. So it's, again, the name of the game is allocation. When you need it, pull it, and we can give you between 2 and 4 simultaneous at max quality. When you go beyond that, now it's a question of who do you want at 1080, who do you want at 720. And if you've been to Zoom Test Kitchen, you know Jeff puts on screen that chart, and it shows you as it slides up, you know, how Zoom dynamically allows you to pull in resolution to be really network efficient. So we also get the benefit of that, right? We can piggyback off an existing and understood Zoom system, so that when you use this app, it's intuitive. If you understand it the way that Jeff has shared with all of us in Test Kitchen, you can use that knowledge to help use this app. And we're just giving the ability basically to say, all right, instead of dragging it on your screen and having markers to know, we'll just allow you to set it through the interface and through an OSC call. I want this resolution. Give me this resolution, you know, instead of having to scale it up and down.
So I know you know this question was coming real quick, piggybacking off the NDI and 1080 talk and all that. Is the NDI going to allow you 1080 even if you do not have a 1080 account?
No. So you will need to have 1080 for that meeting in order to be able to do that. That's a function of how, you know, Zoom's architecture is built. So we're not circumventing any of Zoom's, you know, bandwidth allocation rules. We are just allowing you to get the best quality that meeting allows. And like I say, if you're doing a 720p production, you bring in a Facebook portal, you'll be able to pull in those 720 feeds and actually do quite a bit. You know, once you drop down to 720, the number of NDI feeds that you can fit at full resolution on a gigabit switch goes way up, right? It's like it's you know, so you can have pretty efficient and pretty good looking 720p workflows. I think that would be to your benefit. But no, we don't circumvent their systems for bumping up to 1080.
Andy, does it? How does your solution react to the subscription? Can we ask for 1080 if all we have is a free account, and it will still work, but we just won't get the resolution we thought we were going to get, or is anything going to break?
Basically, if Zoom ISO joins a meeting where a vanilla client is capable of sending or receiving 1080, Zoom ISO will be able to receive 1080. So think of it about the meetings. You know, ZoomOSC and Zoom ISO are both alternative meeting clients for Zoom. And when they join a meeting, they're following the same rules that meeting has set in place. It's a little different when we get into RoomOSC, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But that's kind of the thinking there.
So I'm just going to jump in
go ahead,
here.
Omar.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just going to jump in here with some of the YouTube questions we've gotten real quick. I got one here that I think is related to what we're talking about here I'm second guessing some of these YouTube names, but I'm sorry. So Lance Rainey asks, why can't you use a SSO Zoom account? And he says, too many layers of security, I would assume, is kind of what is like rebuttal to his own question.
It's Zoom not properly implementing SSO, which kills me. And it's something that I've asked all the way up the chain for that feature to be available to SDK developers immediately. Because it's something that they have the ability to log in via an SSO token, but do we really expect end users to go ask their IT administrators or Google for an SSO token for their login before they can use the app? Probably not. No teacher is going to do that. No end user is going to go through all that chain to get that set up. So we've asked for a more intelligent SSO workflow to come to the SDK, and hopefully they bring that soon. But for now, we basically say no SSO, sorry.
Great. Here in Zoom, we had 2 questions and one of them, there it is. We had 2 questions come in that are sort of related. Jonathan Joyce says, "I knew this. You knew this was coming. Isolated audio feeds for each participant? ? Thanks. Great work." And then Andrew Lipnick also asked, "Audio features of Zoom ISO, more than 2 channels per NDI connection?"
Okay, so audio with Zoom ISO is something that we believe we'll be able to do, but we don't know if we'll be able to do it when we first launch it. The reason is to get audio, we need raw data access from Zoom. The way that we've built our app does not require that. To get raw data access, you need to ask very nicely. We have asked particularly nicely, and the answer has been, we're not allowing that right now. So they've paused that program. So we're waiting for them to turn that back on. Once they do that, we'll be able to provide it to all of you. If that is a feature you want, please tell Zoom to enable raw data licenses for third-party developers. I will give it to you in a week after you turn that on for me. We built the back end already. And then we'll be able to pull in stereo audio into the NDI feeds once we have raw data access.
I got another one from YouTube here from Jason Panks. Yes, how do we get the features to have companion autofill in buttons?
How do you pull? It would be from the nightly builds of Companion. So you go to Companion's website, go to the build section, and then pull any of the nightly builds from the past couple of weeks. And you can see in the release notes where ZoomOSC module gets updated. Just grab the latest one of that, and you'll be able to search for our name, Liminal, ZoomOSC, in the instance category. You can pull it in, then you're good.
I got one more for you from YouTube, from Joe Cali. This one's one architecture to serve all these integrations. Could this be fleshed out in a simpler term for those of us not familiar with coding?
Absolutely. So OSC stands for Open Sound Control. This is a sort of network-based spiritual successor to MIDI, if you're familiar with that. We've talked about OSC quite a bit on other, in other forms, but the reason we built ZoomOSC on the OSC protocol is that many applications support sending and receiving that protocol. So by building ZoomOSC on top of Open Sound Control, any app that has this ability will be able to act as a controller for Zoom. That's everything from MIDI foot pedals that can go through Osculator and turn into OSC, to high-end vision mixers that have OSC outputs and media servers, and obviously the StreamDeck, as you've seen. All of these apps instantly become Zoom controllers or are able to respond to events inside of Zoom. And OSC is also a very easy library for third-party developers to integrate and build off of. So you've seen, in our workshop with Office Hours, you saw people building stuff in Node-RED. We've seen Bernie Bernstein's JavaScript contributions, TypeScript contributions. It's very easy to find libraries that support Open Sound Control. So for developers across the board, we think it's very important to do open protocols versus, closed-door negotiation between app, setting up special pipe with encrypted communication. We want to do it in a way that anybody, with a mobile app to a physical controller to a vision mixer to a media server can access this. And that means that every time that we change something in OSC or add a feature to it, that upgrade applies to all the platforms that integrate it instantly. So it's a really, I think, working in an open sense is, maybe it kills some quiet proprietary negotiations you could have made with a third party, but it immediately blows open a door to just to all developers. And I would so much rather have that than be a millionaire because of some integration. So that's our thinking.
I'll give you one more before I let the other guys take over. So Andres Hernandez on the Zoom side asks, can this work with the Zoom.gov?
I don't know. I actually don't know. The login process for Zoom is a mystery to me, and I don't really understand why it works the way it works or all of that. We've definitely tried. I know that this is one of the things that, like, when you get the SDK developers together and we talk about this, that's like the big thing that we harpoon Zoom about, is like we don't understand how any of that works. So I don't know. I do have optimism that there may be a way, like if you need to connect to a Zoom.gov meeting, or actually we were thinking about this in Germany, where there's a lot of data privacy concerns around Zoom, and they don't really allow you to use Zoom.us because they want their data stored in their country's servers for Zoom. So they want to use a different URL handle for that. And then Zoom.us clients can't sign into those meetings. So it's something that I'm thinking about. How do we do that? Do we make like the German version of ZoomOSC that like has all these things hard-coded into it? And then do we have like the government version of ZoomOSC and have to build those one-off? Is there a way that we can expose it through an interface to allow you to select that? I would be able to answer those questions if there was documentation on this, but it's rather confusing, and I'm unclear about what the way forward is on that.
Jonathan Joyce on Zoom also said, could you put a placeholder in and have a single button in Companion trigger them to move to full res NDI while also putting them in vMix preview?
Yes. Yep. That's the recommended workflow. And there may even be a way, if vMix ever adds activators with OSC output support, please support that forum post when you get a chance. to completely bypass the controller. Just when it senses that this input went into preview, shoot out an OSC command telling us to bump that up to full res. You could, if they add that, you'll be able to do that.
Andy, if you have that link to that forum post handy, I'll put it out there.
Awesome. I'll dig it up.
So I have a quick question for Zoom OSC on vMix. Can you make one control do multiple actions in vMix from Zoom OSC?
So vMix doesn't have a OSC input or output system.
Okay.
So what you do is you do it inside of your controller and have it control both pieces of software. So you might make a button in Companion that does 15 things to vMix and 15 things to Zoom OSC with one button, and it would be coming from. But the sort of the merging of those two things happens at the controller level versus at the vMix level, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I think
we're all caught up.
Yeah, we caught up on questions. So now, Andy,
Omar has
I don't think you've given us all of the exciting news that we've been waiting for, have we?
Yeah, I have one more thing up my sleeve that I'm very, very happy to share. So in the space of Zoom production, the meeting client and the webinar client, huge. Obviously, for most of us, that's how we're doing these events. But for certain users, an application designed for embedded conference rooms and digital signage has become essential, right? And that's the Zoom Room. And the Zoom Room, bearing the name, of Zoom Room, is sometimes a little confusing. It's a separate app that allows you to get basically more routing between inputs and destinations. It calls into a meeting. It is controlled by an external piece of software, and it can do 3 simultaneous outputs, among other things. And that has made it very appealing to those who either build hardware systems for Zoom and they want all those outputs at once, or those who just want to use the Room ecosystem for remote control or put it in the cloud or things like that. And so I'd say that the meeting client serves the majority of users, but for those really high-end Zoom events, rooms are used way more than the meeting client. And a request that we've gotten over and over and over again is, can Zoom OSC control a Zoom room? And because they're built on different architectures, the answer has normally been no. You can control the contributors to that meeting, but you can't actually control the room until recently. So over the past month, Zoom has made a lot of really positive changes for developers on Zoom rooms. They've opened up a lot of things. And so in response to that, we have been able to create Room OSC, which is a CLI link to a Zoom room that allows you to use OSC commands to manage pins, spotlights, audiovisual states, and the like, as well as getting feedback system that has made Zoom OSC 4 capable of doing all the things that you saw today. So those systems are coming to Zoom Rooms. It's going to be through the Room OSC app, and the way it's going to work is a little bit different from the way Zoom OSC works. So I'll take a second to sort of explain the architecture of it, and then explain how we're going to roll it out. So a Zoom OSC or Zoom ISO is a alternative Zoom client. You sign into it, it logs into a meeting, it is the place where you do all your GUI interactions, and it is there as an alternative to the stock Zoom client. Room OSC connects to an existing Zoom room. So you're still interfacing with the standard room clients. All these login things and all that other stuff that we talked about, you're not installing a separate piece of software that replaces the Zoom room client. You're installing something that connects to the existing room. And the way it works is through SSH. So inside of Zoom Room, there's a little toggle switch that you can turn on and say, hey, allow external applications to remote control me. When you do that, you can take the SSH information and bring it into Room OSC, and you'll be able to connect to that room, and then it acts as the remote control for that room. So now instead of having a table of iPads in front of you that you're using to manage all these different rooms and assigning them to people, say, hey, you're the pinning person for this room, you're the pinning person for this room, you now have that in one consolidated interface. We're also able to do simultaneous connections to multiple Zoom rooms. So if you want to build a system where you've got 50 Zoom rooms doing 150 contributors into a vision mixer, and you want to be able to use one piece of software, one StreamDeck, to control all of the ISO contributors into that vision mixer, you can do it with Room OSC and simultaneously subscribe it to all those rooms at once. So that is a huge workflow advantage. It's something that I am still discovering the potential of this as we're building it out, and I'm really, really excited about it. What we're doing now, we basically on Zoom Test Kitchen, we showed it working. The next step is to put an interface to it that makes it pleasant to use. Right now, it's all done in like a DOS console, and it's kind of ugly and scary. And so now it's a matter of cleaning it up and figuring out exactly what the limit of it is, because I'm still discovering that myself. The outputs that we get from a Zoom room are phenomenal. We get so much information about that meeting that it's the list output from that program is going to be twice the size of the ZoomOSC list output. You're going to be able to get all sorts of statistics and pieces of information about users in the call, and get really granular information about events. So we're really excited about it. It's something that I kind of conceived of 2 weeks ago, did a demo of it last week, and now I'm here talking about it. And the reason for that is I can take everything that I used for ZoomOSC, I can bring it right over, and then I just have to talk by a CLI. And because I can do that, I can get this product out the door very quickly. And again, this is a place where your feedback is essential. So that form that we put out earlier, my production company doesn't really use Zoom rooms very much. I have an understanding of it. I have an intellectual appreciation for it. But you all are the ones who are out in the field using these things. I need to know how you use these rooms so I understand what to prioritize and what to put in the OSC interface and how to package it for you. So your feedback to that system is going to be critical for how we build this product and get it out there. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that so that we can have an understanding of, what do you really need? Because there's so much we could do with it, but I need to find that through line. If we just dump all of it with OSC on both ends, it's going to be unusable. We got to figure out exactly how you want to use this app. What are the most common things that you do? Again, right now we're thinking pins, spotlights, mute, unmute. But maybe there's some other feature that you need, that I'm not aware of, that you use all the time in a Zoom room. And if that's something that you're aware of, please let us know in that forum post so that I understand exactly what that is, and we can make sure that we can add that in, or tell you why we can't, or figure out what feature request we need to make to Zoom in order to turn that feature on. Because they're making a lot of changes to the CLI right now and the API for Zoom rooms, and that's an area that we'd like to provide quality feedback to them, because we know this will affect very large-scale Zoom productions and potentially revolutionize cloud workflows involving rooms. So we are really excited about that. We're going to spin up a beta program for that. Again, please fill out that form for early interest. We want to seed this to people who are using rooms, get your feedback, tell us how it's working for you, what you need, and then we'll keep iterating on it. Once we feel good, we'll make a product out of it. But it's something that we were thrilled about the demo we did this week. We're thrilled about the early results that we're seeing, and we know people are really excited who have had early access to it too. And now we want to kind of break that open a little more fully. So that's the other thing we're working on. So between ZoomOSC 4 with this new companion integration, Zoom ISO for individual NDI outputs of Zoom, and RoomOSC for the high-end Zoom events that use rooms as the backbone, we think we're going to have basically an offering for every Zoom-based production workflow available that we're aware of. And we're hoping that all of this will be available within the next month. So we're feeling really excited about that, and appreciate all the feedback that's helped us form that.
Well, I can tell you right now that you're literally going to have a lot of people. I have seen multiple comments coming through saying they volunteer as tribute. So, and even Andreas said he's willing to volunteer as tribute for the zoom.gov as well. So
that's great.
You really definitely have a lot of support coming from everybody in the community here.
We really appreciate that. It's the only way that we can make this stuff happen.
So, Andy, just to have a point of time management, is there anything else that you were looking to show us tonight before we dive into maybe a few more questions?
I'm feeling pretty good. Ashley, did you want to try to show device remote control? Did you get that working with Benjamin, or? And you're muted.
I just go to displays devices. That's the only thing.
I think it's worth showing.
Yeah.
We'll do it real quick. So as you know, ZoomOSC 4 Pro has a remote control system. We're working on adding that remote control system for devices into the companion, so you can select somebody else's camera device, somebody else's audio device, set their audio levels, things like that. That's all existing right now in ZoomOSC 4, but we want to expose that to you through a pleasant interface in Companion. So Ashley will show you how we can get, there's all of the devices from Benjamin's system fed back to us through the remote control system. They're not actually setting it right now, but and Benjamin,
Yes.
correct us if I'm wrong, but those are your devices, right? Yep. Awesome.
Yeah. The only thing with the devices list that's different to all the rest of the feedbacks is that you do have to specifically ask for that user's devices before they're available, and that's just so you don't have like hundreds of devices in Companion, and just because it makes available variables for each each target type of each user. So you will get a lot of variables if you ask for everybody's devices for everyone in the call.
Right. Yeah, it can get pretty crazy. So
Yeah, actually, if you were able to toggle to NDI, you would see something, but I don't know if you can get there. Nope, nothing yet. Okay, next time.
Yeah.
all good.
And then Andy, this works with what do you have to do to make this work? If you had two machines or two people participants in a meeting, what level of ZoomOSC do they need, and how do they connect this?
So if you're trying to do something that does not exist in the Zoom user interface, you're going to need ZoomOSC Pro on both ends. If you want to turn somebody's video on and off, mute and unmute them, you can do that without a Pro license on the far end because there's an API call for it. If it involves the remote control system that goes through the chat, that's when you need ZoomOSC Pro on both sides. So that's things like selecting camera and mic devices, remotely starting screen sharing, remotely showing and hiding usernames on somebody else's video, remotely showing and hiding non-video participants, setting mic levels, setting speaker levels of the system, that kind of stuff. Things that there isn't a way for you to do that through clicking through your Zoom user interface, short of requesting remote control of their system. That's where you need ZoomOSC 4 Pro on both sides. And then you also need to go into your settings page and make sure that you're allowing remote control from users and that you are enabling remote control of users on the sending side. It's a security feature to make sure that you can't jump into some event and then just start, I know how ZoomOSC works. I'm gonna send this event into chaos, right? So that's why you have that security layer there to be able to specify who has what control.
Great, that's good. That's cool. I mean, it's cool that there are functions that can be done with the essentials level if you have a Pro account to control those, and then the more advanced features, you just have to get the Pro. Which again, head over to the ZoomOSC website, go pick up that Pro, and take advantage of that 15% off discount that expires tonight at midnight. So you only got a couple hours left. I would love to take a second and let's hear from our panel. Whoa, Chuck, is your shoulder okay? That hand went up so quick. Let's. What do you got? What do you got, Chuck?
I just wanted to know when I can get my ZoomOSC polo. That's all.
So the polos, yeah. We're doing a shirt run, and we're collecting interest forms. Let me try to find that. Benjamin, if you have that link handy, I know you've got the ability to find links.
Serious on that one. Okay.
Yeah, no, we are doing a shirt run. Yeah. Here's the thing with the shirts. So I've got one on right now. We'll be doing a little bit of a nicer version than this one. This is kind of a test for us, but as you've seen, we do a lot of development on our products and a lot of stuff on our free products, but we also do a lot of development just in the community and in open source places, trying to modify Companion, move it forward, try to modify QLab, Isadora, a lot of different things out there and affect their OSC integrations. That is not something that, strictly speaking, is a profitable venture for us. So when you support us through picking up a polo or something like that, that is how we fund those ventures. We really believe in it, and trying to invest in open things like our GLSL shader libraries. Other people get repos for things like Companion and all that stuff. So we appreciate all the support we can get. This is how we make it happen. So any support that you're able to kick back to us, we will appreciate. What we're doing here is T-shirt signups or polo signups the way I did in college, where you put out an interest form, figure out how many people on the hall want to get the shirt for the hall, and then figure out what the price is based on the person who provides them. Shoot them an email, and then you'll get an email saying, "Hey, if you actually want to buy this, here's the price. Here's and here's your link to do that." So we're just getting the interest right now. This is not non-committal at the moment.
I put in my request earlier today. So
you're going to probably see a lot of requests come through.
Yeah, absolutely. And also keep in mind that ZoomOSC isn't the only thing that Liminal developed. They have another program called Streamweaver. And Andy, maybe you can talk about that briefly.
Yeah, absolutely. So Streamweaver is a protocol transport system that we've created that allows you to send things like DMX or OSC or really any UDP-based protocol over the public internet. And what we do is we turn that UDP protocol into SRT. Now, you might have heard of SRT from the world of video production. That's how you send, like if you want to package your NDI into SRT and get it on the other side. What SRT is it's a way of transporting a data stream with this really cool feature that allows you to say, hey, if I missed a packet, send that packet again so I can reconstruct it on the other side. So while a lot of people are doing remote control via VPNs or remote session or things like that, what we found is that sensitive protocols like ArtNet, which is a wrapper for DMX, or OSC, that's trigger based, where it's very discrete. If you drop a packet of that, your light fixture is going to bump on a fade, or you're going to miss a trigger in your media server, or something like that's going to fall apart. So our idea was, all right, let's take this really cool SRT protocol that's used for video. And I went and asked Haivision, like, hey, what happens if I just send like anything through this? And like, we don't know. Why don't you try? So we did, and it works. It works really, really well. It lets us have these really beautiful fades of lighting. It brought live lighting design back to the theater community, which was like that one element that we couldn't get in these virtual productions, is we couldn't get your light board to talk to your light fixture. So with something like StreamWeaver Light, you can have, exactly that. We've had a board op in New York City control lighting instruments that we mailed to Italy, South Korea, to California, and we've had all of them in a live lighting show together for theater production. So it's really cool for that. It's cool for remote controlling an ATEM. If you throw ATEM OSC in a room with StreamWeaver in it, and you put a band in there, and you want to remote switch those cameras from another safe location, you can do that. You can have QLab on one side, control ATEM on the other side. You can do all sorts of really cool stuff with protocol transmission. And again, basically what we're just doing is we're making sure that those packets that you are sending are received on the other side. Just as long as if your internet connection is stable enough to do something like that, StreamWeaver will be able to let you do that. And we're taking advantage of other things with the SRT technology, like rendezvous pairing, so nobody has to port forward their networks and things like that. So it's really elegant for talent-based deployment, and that's what all that's about. So again, if you have like a bunch of ZoomOSCs in the cloud, you don't want to link them up with the VPN because you want to get those data streams with high integrity. You can throw StreamWeaver up there with them and get all those talking to each other. We just made a big update to StreamWeaver as well to bring it to macOS in a really robust way. So it's something that we're continuing to actively develop, and it does some cool things.
That's great. That's great to hear. So I would love to bring it back to the panel again to get some feedback about some of these features. I know, like I said earlier, Justin and I just did an event where I was using ZoomOSC to handle some of that switching for him. Could you see, Justin, what are you thinking for the productions you're doing at the theater, how this could be, useful and the Zoom ISO, especially with the, some of the upgrades to streaming that you're looking to do?
Oh, absolutely. And the question sort of answers itself. I mean, just what we could do in workflow in that one meeting on the fly. And yeah, the idea of, we've kicked around a lot pulling the ISOs out, so that's going to be really exciting.
Great. Anybody else? Jeff Woodgren. Chuck again. Sorry, I'll go to Chuck since
he's going to have a shoulder problem tomorrow.
He's eager.
Well, no, I'm just so excited because I'm the guy that Andy talks about who has the hardware and usually does the SDI workflow, and it's kind of a pain. I think I mentioned this on another podcast or something, but we actually upgraded all my techs to gaming mice so that they can move around the Zoom infrastructure faster, so that they could do these pins and stuff. And now I can just sit a StreamDeck in front of them. And with my Zoom room that I have right here, and I actually have an old Lenovo tablet as my controller, I am so excited for what I will be able to do with ZoomOSC and being able to do that. Because I do still have my 2ME. I do still have my SDI workflows. But being able to control what comes into those just completely changes what I'm able to offer my clients. And I'm doing 3-day events and summits and corporate trainings, which are normally pretty boring, and they're amazed already with what I'm able to do to make their events be a different level. And they're like, well, you did this in Zoom? I'm like, yeah, I did this in Zoom. And it's thanks to these guys and the effort that they've been doing. And Benjamin, for how quickly he grasped this, he was able to jump me probably about 3 weeks ahead of what I was doing with this, just because of what he's been able to get from what you've put out, Andy. So we are with ZoomOSC supporters all the way. Thank you.
That's great, Chuck. Yeah, I it's changed my workflow. I have clients right now, and to be honest, I'm a freelancer, and having this tool in my tool belt actually really differentiates me from other Zoom producers, where I'm going to keep this client, and because I'm going to be able to do stuff that some other people aren't going to be able to do unless they had, a few hands and multiple computers and, tons of ways to, but there's not even ways they can do it with that. So this is just a great thing. I'm super excited for.
You
continuing to
used
use
the word, exactly the word I was going to use is you think, oh, I know Zoom, and it all feels pretty flat if you're just all good, but it's an absolute differentiator, and there's plenty of Zoom tech admins out there who I'm confident don't even know what ZoomOSC is, or that it exists, or how powerful it is, or whatnot. And it really does set you apart. So if you haven't tuned into that, and if you think it's too early, you're wrong now. I mean, several weeks ago, I'd say maybe, or a short few months ago, maybe. But this is, I would say, coupled with where it is, coupled with the speed in which Andy and his team develop and release, is unbelievable. And it's just going to continue to get better day by day by day. And so I just say, I think of it as, being able to buy early stock in a fast food chain that wasn't public yet called McDonald's years and years and years ago. And it's one of those things. This is our opportunity. This group, along with several others that we know who know about it as well, jump on the train. You can't lose on this one. The momentum behind Zoom itself is unbelievable, and this tool takes a ton of that clumsiness out of Zoom and makes it a real viable production tool, as close as we can get it now. So thanks, Andy, for that.
Thanks, Jeff. And John, I see you have your hand up. What do you have to share?
I was just say, Andy and Ashley, you both seem like you're getting sleep. And
Ashley's
smiling,
over there in the UK, and it's in the middle of the night.
Right there, but could you return to the end of the show? Can you reflect what it's been like, maybe since Zoom OS 4 or OSC 4, or what's your life been? Can you reflect on the Ferris wheel ride you've gotten yourself on?
Absolutely, and I look forward to hearing Ashley's answer on this. But it's been almost a year. I think I'll throw a little party for ZoomOSC. It's coming up on its first birthday. But ZoomOSC 4 was a huge change for us because it was what popped the bubble from academic and professional theater into the broadcast market. And our poor community manager, who sits at the receiving end of our inbox, after that first office hours episode, she got flooded. She just got so much feedback, and we got all these messages and downloads, and we had to upgrade all of our infrastructure, at a ticketing system, at our Slack group from like 100 people to 600 in like 2 days. It was, once we got on the scene through the groups like this who've helped get us that exposure, we really spun up very, very quickly. And what we've tried to do is say, okay, how do we not waste that momentum? How do we allow people to give us that feedback and actually process it and parse it in a way? And that's why Cal is so incredible from our team. She really is able to digest all of that and get back to you and make sure that you always get an answer in 24 hours and that, we get the information we need as developers to be able to build things that work out. I mean, she really is the glue that holds things together for us, and a lot of appreciation should be sent her way to deal with that kind of scale. It's opened my mind as well. I mean, it's helped me understand this tool in ways that I didn't, even as the creator of it, as project manager, I didn't even see it was possible. I've seen people build things that I never thought would be built, and workflows enabled, and especially in the area of accessibility. People who this MIDI pedal thing really got me excited for people who don't have faculty of their hands to be able to use Zoom in a way that they can't otherwise do, through a tactile way, through these pedals converting into OSC and then changing pages in the gallery view and things like that. I mean, that makes me really excited. It's not something I would have thought about off the bat, but because again, we're building on open protocols, it's possible. So, Ashley, what's it been like for you? I know I've been emailing you quite a bit since we launched.
Yeah, I've definitely
Where is
seen.
this feature? Why isn't it working? What do we do?
I've seen new hours of the day. I think this since we've been working, because Andy's on the East Coast, and then Richard is currently in Oman. And I'm in the UK, so it's a really big stretch of the time period that we're working over. It's been a bit crazy, but I think it helps us cover the slack as well, which is quite nice.
Right, we have a night shift. We have a night shift. People, when I go to bed, there's somebody who's waking up to answer the question.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, Yeah, it's been really good. The companion stuff is like, I'm using this for a show. The user devices stuff, I'm using that for a show that I'm doing in the next sort of month or so. And using like being able to have like a remote camera switcher and things like that. Like it's helped my workflow quite a lot. Yeah.
So we do have a couple of questions. Lance Rainey also said, regarding the SSO, then can I set up my Zoom meeting with my SSO account and then join the meeting with the join only option with the meeting ID and meeting password to use ZoomOSC?
Yes. So if you want, you can manage your accounts through the regular client, and then when you want to bring in ZoomOSC into the meeting, if you don't have registration forced for that meeting, you can do it by only join. If you do have it forced, you can do what we did to get our ZoomOSCs into this call, which we told Ed, hey, these are the email addresses we want to use for our ZoomOSCs tonight. Go ahead and make sure those are whitelisted so that we can get those into the call on the interface there. And you can do it both ways. So you can keep because there is benefit, to having registration protection for high profile events or something like that, or things that are in the public sector. And you can keep that level of security. Just make some accounts and they can be free accounts. They don't have to be anything special. Just spin some up and then bring them in.
Well, you just answered his next question, because his next question was, he's at the university and they gave them all SSO logins, and with the free accounts having limitations, he wouldn't enjoy buying Zoom out of pocket if he had to. But you just answered his question. He can use a free Zoom account to do all this work.
Right. Manage your meetings inside of your university's domain, and then just make sure that your meeting settings are set up such that you can have a free account, jump in, get all the benefits of the meeting that your university is paying Zoom for, but you don't have to pay out of pocket for that capability. You're already paying for it through your tuition.
So Andy, we just have a couple questions, and we're going to wrap up very shortly. Corin Olson here in Zoom says, Zoom has just recently released a better way to show videos through their screen share function, which supposedly gives video controls for play, pause, etc. Have you been able to play with that at all and provide those controls through ZoomOSC?
Unfortunately not. And this has to do with the way that Zoom handles developers. If there's a security release, we will get that information early. We'll be, get the time that we need to make sure that our apps won't be destroyed when Zoom says like, oh yeah, encryption on all the meetings. That way we have a heads up on that, so that we're able to make a change on our end. When it comes to features, I'll give you some perspective on this. The multi-pin, multi-spot system came out in like late August, early September. It was available to developers on December 28th. So it took them quite a while to do that. And that being said, there've been other features that have been like 2 weeks later. Oh, here it is in the in the meeting client. So it's very inconsistent, and there's also no roadmap. There's no roadmap for the SDK at all, which means I can kind of sit here and shrug and say, I hope that comes soon, and I suspect that it will. But Zoom doesn't really communicate with developers or put documentation out there. So it's hard for me to tell when that feature is going to become available. But we ask. We just don't always get the answer we're looking for.
Roscoe Jones here asks, are you having to fend off any VC offers at this time?
If I could I answer that? But I will say one thing on the business front where it's, I've really tried to resist the idea of being a startup. I want to be a small business. And the reason for that is, what a startup will do is they will eat up a bunch of investor money, and they will rocket something off and then hope to get acquired, or they crash. And I've wanted to build sustainable infrastructure. I want to build tools that people can rely on and use, and that's the way that we've structured our business. We haven't taken outside investment. We've built it from a production company. So we made our software company, we made a production company, and the production company has been paying to make ZoomOSC free for most of the past year. And we've just recently introduced this model that allows it to be self-sustaining, so the production company doesn't depend on all of that. So we've tried to build ourselves in a sustainable way, so that whatever comes down the line, we will happily talk about and address when we get to that juncture. But we've built something that we feel confident in and we feel proud of, and that we don't feel is on a collision course unless it gets picked up by some other company. So we're building good bones, and I feel confident about that. At the same time, we practically act like a technology startup with the amount of products that we're trying to release and the timelines that we're doing that. I mean, I really don't it's because of people like Ashley really that make, and Richard, that make this possible, that we can release 6 products in 2 months. and actually have all the backend to do that. And people like Kala who support that, Nolan and Jonathan who are there with me in the battlefield trying to get all that done. So I've really tried to take the small business approach of like, don't burn up all your employees, don't burn up all this money, work with folks, listen to your community, build something sustainable, and let the chips fall where they will fall, and don't, but build for the present.
That's great. Yeah, go ahead, Omar.
Yeah, so I got one final question for you guys for the night. Unless I'm wrong, let me know, Ed, but I believe there's one more question before we get to my favorite part, which is the positive feedback. Jasmine Lee asks, any suggestions for how or where a complete zero can start learning how to use ZoomOSC and all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of different ways to use ZoomOSC, right? There's the way of like, I want to learn how to build buttons and integrate it with my QLab or build a StreamDeck integration. There's all these different points of entry. So I always say, start with the program that you want to use to control Zoom, right? If you're a theater maker, maybe that's QLab. If you're a broadcaster, that's probably Companion or something like that. So pick that program first. Make sure you understand how that program uses open sound control, right? See if we have a first-party integration available, and then check our YouTube channel. I post tons of videos on our YouTube channel all the time, and I really try to break down without any presumption of knowledge about open sound control or anything like that. Hey, here's QLab. You want to make it talk to Zoom? Here's step-by-step how to get that started. Here's the documentation you can go off to read and build, all the things about that. But I try to get those first steps covered on every app that I'm aware of that has OSC support, and we continue to do that. We had weeks where we were putting out 10 YouTube videos a week, trying to cover ground, and we've slowed down that pace a little bit so we can strategize around the software. But we do try to offer that. We have a quick start guide that's available. Basically explains what open sound control even is, has a telephone analogy, all that stuff. So you can read the quick start on our website. There's a lot of resources out there, but the best thing I can do is, recommend you talk to the community. We've got 600 something people in our Slack group. AV Educate now brought up to speed on this stuff. Office Hours, also another great community with a lot of, now we've done 5 weeks of training with them. So presumably they're up to some sort of speed with this. Make that connection. There are people who are willing to help you, and don't go it alone. So use the resources we have, yes, but always please feel free to reach out to our community, and we will make sure that you're able to produce the best work you can in Zoom.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that, we have a library of stuff on YouTube on the AV Educate channel that'll give you the fundamental knowledge to kind of build your skill set from a zero standpoint to get to the OSC level. We've done Zoom ones, we've done the QLab stuff, we've done a bunch of these already. So if you just go to the YouTube page on AV Educate or on the Facebook side, there's tons of videos on the fundamental side of that that'll definitely help you get to that point. And then as well, diving into the Office Hours on their YouTube channel or diving into ours or any of the ones that Andy just mentioned will definitely get you up to speed in a relatively quick way, and they're very informative, very good. Andy's videos are great, by the way, if when you get to see those. So I want to real quick jump in, unless Ed, you got something you want to say first on the positive feedback. So I'll take a quick break on that.
Just Andy, if you don't mind, if you have the link to your YouTube so I can get it out, that would be great.
Yeah, let me go pull that up.
Thanks.
And
so
as well, Andy, I'm trying to do my purchase right now, and I can't for the life of me in two different browsers with refreshes get my quantity to actually pop me to a purchase page.
Huh, that's peculiar. We had a couple of reports of that today. I will when it comes to purchases, if you have any trouble purchasing, let info@liminalet.com go. We will just give you the license that you are looking for, and then we'll deal with the billing later. Like we know you got productions coming up, you need to get to work. We'll figure out the money later. Just email us and we'll get you what you need, and then we'll deal with the payment once it's figured out.
Sounds good. Thanks.
So I just saw a link pop up in the chat. We'll make sure to get on Facebook and YouTube. So real quick, just for the community out there, for the panelists, for everybody here with us tonight, for the speakers, I just want to give you some of the positive feedback we're getting from YouTube, Facebook, and Zoom. I'm going to start off real quick with the first thing that happened that I thought was really, really cool that I'm sure the viewers didn't even notice at all. And thank you for the panelists for being so professional about this. But Chuck actually jumped in this call from being live on Facebook and commenting. Then he brought into Zoom with our link and information, and then we brought him live onto the side from an attendee to a panelist, so that he could bring you that experience he had, which was great. And we did all this live. So super props to the team for kind of adjusting with us on the fly there. Super props for everybody in the panel for adjusting to that. This is a live session here, and we were able to do that live. And Chuck, what you provided feedback-wise was amazing. So I was glad we were able to jump you in real quick and get you on board with us, and from Facebook to Zoom. So I was really cool about that. I just want to give a big shout out to the community on that one, because that was really, really cool. Jason Pank said, and I noticed the payment feature sounds amazing. Dimitri says, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the webinar. I'll finish watching it later on the channel. On YouTube side, Beauty Bubble, super happy to catch you live on the YouTube feed. We had Alan Davis, 2 thumbs up for the Zoom ISO. Again, Beauty Bubble, incredible work, Andy. Brent Chandler, wow, for the NDI demo portion of that. Jason Perkins, ZoomOSC looks great. Mike Greyjab says, thrilled to have purchased it. So much potential with ZoomOSC. Joe Cali, thank you, as that was a great explanation for the question you asked a little bit earlier. Andres Hernandez says, I'm up for testing zoom.gov, so if you guys want to get linked up on that part, let us know, and we'll make that connection for you. He has a zoom.gov account. Chuck Wojcik, again, showing the love today. I volunteer as a tribute. Doug Ferguson, panelist. Great stuff, guys. Again, Chuck, Zoom Kings, calling you guys the Zoom Kings. Awesome on that. I also put a note here. He wants to get some of those Zoom polos, which we shared to the community. So if you're looking for that, as in the comments, both on YouTube and Facebook. I just want to give you guys some statistics here. So on Facebook, we had the average of 28.
Whoa. You have one more, and this is actually a really big one, in my opinion. Jeff Keithley said, you've roped me in.
You roped Jeff Keithley in, yep. We wrote it in the chats. We put that in there as a comment, as a feedback.
Right tool, right job.
You've made it, Andy.
So I'll make sure I have another one with you guys all together on a call to see what, how you utilize it in his workflow, because I know he's got an interesting workflow. So listen, thanks to you, Andy, for being here with us, obviously, because you got us, Facebook on average is 47. We had an average of 16 on YouTube. On average of 16 on YouTube, which, by the way, we don't really promote it. This is the second time we've really done it, and it's already getting traction on that, so thank you for that. On Zoom today, we had 51 people here on the Zoom side, which is incredible. And then, again, I actually put the Jeff Keithley comment in there twice. That's how surprised I was. Beauty Bubble, funding through fashion is very cool. She liked that. Jay DeCal, can't wait to lock this in. Roscoe said here, if they understand what it takes to do such magic. And that was a comment earlier to what you were saying, Jeff. And then Mike Grubbs, again, thanks DV Store for supporting this series. A special thanks for being at 1080p as well. If you guys weren't aware of that, these are all 1080p thanks to DV Store being our sponsor. Ray Harris says, you are all amazing. And finally, the last positive feedback I got for the night was from N.S. Thompson. Thank you, everyone. See you next week.
Thank you, Omar. That's awesome. And thank you, all, everybody, for the positive feedback. We really appreciate that here at AV Tech Talks and in the panel. It's great that you guys are getting value from the things that we present here. Andy, thank you very much. Ashley, great job tonight. Benjamin, thank you also for your demos, and for all of our panel, Justin, Chuck, John, Brent, Scott, and Iris, and 2 Justins tonight. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions. This has been great. I do want to say next week, I mentioned it earlier, but join us for Universe Control. I'm putting some links in some chats right now to the event page for next week. Make sure you check that out. We really only have event pages on Facebook and on our Discord. So if you're not on our Discord, that link's already gone out in the chats. Make sure you join our Discord where we can continue these conversations. Every episode gets its own channel. So you can follow up, you can ask questions. Hey, I missed this part. What does everybody have to say? And Andy checks in pretty often. We're encouraging all of our presenters to come back and check in for those follow-up conversations and questions. So you want to get on that Discord and join us there. Be to your benefit to do so. And then after that, Andy mentioned today Isadora. So that's another thing we have coming up on the 15th. So that's going to be another thing. We'll tell you all about that next week. So you got to come back next week, and then we'll tell you about what's coming up the week after. But this month, we really tried to build on this knowledge and this momentum because, Andy, I think it's fair that in the last month, there's probably been more growth and changes going on with ZoomOSC than most other months, I would say. Yeah. So. Great, thank you, Andy. So,
and then the software pieces as well. I mean, it's the fact that you all are interested in ZoomOSC is affecting the industry, and the way that they're implementing the software. So the likes of Universe and Isadora have made changes based on your feedback because you're telling them that you want to use ZoomOSC with your software, and we really appreciate that.
Great, thanks, man. Thanks, Andy. So with that, I don't want to keep us too late. It's already 9:10. Office hours. If you are an office hours viewer, you want to get on over there. They do their Monday nights right after us. But we thank Alex for being able to work with us on the timing so that nobody misses out on anything. Everybody can get to all the shows they want to see. Again, we'll just thank the DVE store real quick. We are very thankful for their support for our 1080p webinar. So thank you, DVE store. That's dvestore.com. Check them out. Guy is like the greatest guy. He's the greatest dude in the world. He's super, super humble and willing to help anybody. I can't say enough nice things about Guy Cochran, the master of the ring light. If anybody knows about that, but
that's right.
It's right. So with that, I think we're all set. And
2 seconds, really quick, Ed. I just want to put out
sorry,
for
Chris.
everybody here. For everybody here, I just want to put out and say thank you to everybody that comes in and supports me on Twitch, because as of today, I've doubled last year for the kids. It's $1,000 for the kids right now. And we just started March 1st. So I just want to first off say thank you for that, for everybody that's come and support everything like that. The next thing we've got going for myself is on stream. If I reach 100 subs under my counter, I'm going to do a Viking stream, a Viking cosplay. I'm going to braid my beard, put beads in it, bead my hair and everything. And then after we're done with that, we're going to cut my hair live on stream. So that's once we hit 100 subs. The beard's not going. That's 10 grand.
I was going to say, which hair? Which hair?
Established already. Beard stays unless it's 10 grand. Plain and simple. So don't even ask. So.
All right. Well, you guys heard it. You guys heard it here. So let's go subscribe to Bodie's channel. He's going to post that link in the chats so that we can get it out there and watch him cut his hair in a couple weeks. So with that, I want to have everybody say goodnight to Facebook and YouTube. We'll see you all next week. Thanks for joining us on AV Tech Talks. Have a great night, and go get that ZoomOSC. You got, less than 3 hours before that special runs out. So make sure you go get that, and we'll see you next week. Good night.